Most organizations say that they're data driven, but very few make data accessible to the people who can actually need it. Today's guest builds automation infrastructure that flips the equation. Michael, how you doing today, buddy?
Great. How you doing?
Doing fantastic. So tell me a little bit more about that. We just mentioned I've worked for organizations in the past that really emphasize the fact that we are data driven and our decisions are made around data. But I also agree with the statement that most companies probably overstate that concept. Where do you see most people maybe overvalue that? And where do you see kind of where you guys come in with Data Squirrel on how to help close that gap?
Yeah. Every organization I've ever worked with or in says they're a data-driven organization. And it may be true, right? But what they don't tell you is how hard it is to get that data and the lack of trust that they have in the data. So over the last several years, we've been building Data Squirrel to help people automate that journey. So I myself have built hundreds of data pipelines, some of the biggest in the world, where we actually, teams I've worked with and have driven, have built those, and you use those things every day. You just don't realize it.
Right.
Okay. You name a financial institution, a retail company, odds are I was there. And odds are you using something I personally have built. And it takes so long to build those things. So when executives or line of business owners talk about, oh, we make data-driven decisions, there's a lot of effort that goes into that. So we try to make that a lot easier, plain and simple.
Okay. So as you say that, what pops in my head is 10 years ago, developing tools, platforms, these types of things that maybe you have been a part of developing, I could imagine was a much more challenging thing. Now, in today's world, with some of the AI that brings in, I assume that has, in ways, made it easier to build it with more accessible tools to help you. How has AI affected the building of these tools to be able to help you be more effective?
Yeah, I actually just wrote a Substack post that kind of talks to this, but it's done a few things. It has both positives and negatives. The positive is someone who is not very technical can now write almost enterprise-grade software with a few prompts and the right tool. The problem with that is when it breaks, that person doesn't have the know-how to go in and diagnose it. And a lot of times the AI doesn't. Now, let's just say it does. Another problem is on the executive side or the business owner side, right? And I hear this all the time from executives. Well, why don't I just let the AI loose on the data? Meaning, put it together and see what happens. Great idea. In theory, right. Good intentions, right? And as we know, what happens with good intentions. The problem with that is it's almost like a sandwich with two pieces of bread and nothing in the middle. And you kind of need something for the AI to understand the data. Matter of fact, there's an area of academic research that we ascribe to called neurosymbolic. And it's a really fancy academic term for a very simple concept, the connective tissue between AI and data. So for instance, if you're running a company, and I've done this multiple times where I've gone to a company and I ask a very simple question. What's a customer? How do you define a customer? If I ask 10 people that question, I get 10 different answers.
Sure. It's 10 people inside that same business. We'll give you 10 different
Exactly.
answers. Yeah.
Exactly. 10 people, 10 different answers. How is the AI supposed to know then? Not only that, how is the AI supposed to know what data it should or shouldn't share?
Yeah, and I think that to your point there, I think a lot of times people sometimes overvalue AI because I think AI and any of these programs are only as good as you prompt it and only as good as you prepare it. And if you don't have the level of knowledge that somebody like you has, then there's still inherently a limitation in regards to how you teach it to look at the data. Now, I would bet that you would agree with me on this is once you built the prompting in AI correctly and it's configured correctly, man, the volume of data it can review and analyze and the speed of that is immeasurable using the
Yeah,
computer and the AI. But it's the prompting, right?
it's it's the it's the prompting, but I'll also say more importantly, it's the context.
Okay. That makes sense.
So
So, but you have
so
to have that experience to understand the context, right?
right, right. And you also have to be able to prepare the data in the correct fashion, which kind of goes to my earlier point. But a really easy way to think about this for me is if AI is the car or the engine, data is the gasoline.
Mm. Okay.
And I often do say as well, data squirrel is the gas pump, right? But also, if this goes back in every AI practitioner, every data engineer or data architect I speak to, they will tell you the very same thing. It goes back to a very old adage, garbage in, garbage out. So a lot of these engineers, a lot of these architects are sitting there saying, I want to feed AI the data, but I also know that the data is bad quality, incomplete, inconsistent, not fresh, and so on. So that's the way I typically think about it when we're talking about um, whether you're prompting the system correctly, it still relies on the data. And going back to the car analogy, if you have the wrong grade of gas, your car is not going to perform that great.
Right. So, Michael, the question I'd ask for you next is who is your ICP? So, who is your customer? So, you ask that of 10 different people, you get 10 different answers in one business, but who's using what you guys do at Data Squirrel?
Oddly enough, we do try to target data architects and data engineers, but in reality, the people who have been wowed by what we do, although it is those people, are the line of business owners, like
Okay.
a VP of operations, a VP of revenue or customer, because what we bring up is Claude or ChatGPT, and then we just start typing in natural language questions around really complex data that they can't typically access without running 15 different reports. And all of a
Mm.
sudden now they see it. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah. And I asked this question when you answered it, you answer kind of maybe the title of the person in the business, but and I've been focusing a lot on this lately, Michael, and it's more on the being able to niche down into having a specialization of the industry or the types of businesses that would hire you. So I get the roles and who you
Yeah.
might target, but what are the industries that are best going to get the most out of using what you guys do?
Yeah. I typically, since we're so applicable horizontally, so to speak, and myself and my co founder, have a decades between us of industry experience across the board. We've typically tackled things like healthcare first and financial services, but not the big companies. The big companies, they have armies of people, even though Data Squirrel can benefit them. We're trying to target the mid market where you don't have somebody like myself or my co founder who has deep technical expertise or a lot of people, like an army to throw at them. They have one or two people and they need more. So that's who I'm trying to target right now.
So what I'm hearing you say is, and just to give you a background on me, Michael, I've got about 15 years of building sales teams and sales organizations, and I left the corporate landscape about 3 years ago to start my own business. And a lot of times what I end up doing is coming in and being that fractional sales leader. It sounds to me like your approach is very similar to me, but with your specific different industry specialization of data, data scientists, data, you said you target data architects and data engineers. You're able to be that for companies who maybe can't afford to have a full-time person in that role. You can serve as that fractional data engineer that they can use along with your platform to be able to help you deliver that, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And is there and I'm double clicking on this because is there an industry who uses it the most? And I ask this question because I come from the automotive background, and I actually have recently just invested into a data cleansing technology for the automotive sector. And why I saw the value in it is he kind of talked with me about what his platform does is he basically was like, hey, these dealerships have over 15, 20, 30, 50 years of data, of customer data, customer profile data, who's bought, when they bought, what they bought, all of that stuff. And most companies who are doing their advertising are not then using that data to be more driven in regards to how they're feeding the marketing services like Google pay-per-click or like Facebook to be able to be more targeted in their approach. So that made a lot of sense. Now, he and I both come from the automotive space, and so the original idea was for automotive dealers, but as I talk with him more, we found, man, there's probably a much larger opportunity in a B2C environment where we're actually finding companies who are going directly to customers like car dealerships who need help with their advertising strategy, but maybe in industries that are not so competitive, which the automotive industry has no shortage of people who are creating technology targeting automotive dealers. It's just a very competitive landscape. What I've focused on a lot, Michael, is how can I niche down? How can I say that this AI company that I'm a part of, this is who we specialize in, this is why we specialize in, and this is how we can use your historical data to help you be more refined in your approach. So to ask that question again, would you work with an automotive dealer to do this? Would you work with a B2C customer to do this? Or you have another bigger industry type of focus, maybe where your background is or where your tool is more effectively been utilized?
We've actually had a few discussions with automotive adjacent companies over the last few years. Nothing's really come to fruition on it. In the B2C sense, it's really not a B2C, type of tool. It's more of a B2B tool completely.
Okay. So yours is a B2B tool to where when I'm talking about the data cleansing tool, it is a cleansing for a customer who does B2C environment. But yours is more of a cleansing. See, and that's like, because ours has the ability to, when we have all that data, then we can build the profiles to then use it as a marketing platform that integrates in outbound AI agents and bots to be able to, when a customer then submits a lead, use the AI to engage that lead. And so instead of a company like, let's say a real estate company who has thousands or tens of thousands of customers in their database, we can then use that data to then market to them. And then when leads are submitted, we can use the AI to communicate with them.
Got it. Yeah, the use cases I'm thinking of, and I'm doing this right now with several schools actually, is revenue generation for athletic departments.
Okay. So how would they use the data cleansing to then generate revenue once they've worked with you?
It's not so much data cleansing, although that could be part of it.
The data that's there, sorry.
Yeah, it's more of a unification.
Okay.
And because they are highly siloed in terms of their data. And a lot of it is in many ways inaccessible. Not only that, you're talking about athletic people. They know football, they know basketball,
Sure.
volleyball, wrestling.
Right. Exactly.
They don't know databases.
Right.
They may know spreadsheets, but they don't know SaaS software.
I completely get it in that
Yeah,
my business model is I typically work with technical founders who have a specialization on what they know. Let's say data,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But they don't necessarily have a background of selling. They don't have a background of generating revenue. So then I come in to serve that selling muscle, and you are working with people who are focused on sports, and you say, well, hey, you have this data, it can be beneficial. Let me be that wing for you.
yeah. And taking notes as we talk. I always do.
Okay, cool.
No, I get that. Yeah, so that's that's who we. I hope that gives you a good sense of who we are and what we do. And it's it's also it's very hard for us to really say this is exactly what we do. Uh, I don't want to say from a targeting perspective because we're so applicable horizontally because everyone uses the types of software that we have brought together and glued
Yeah.
together, if you will.
I ask these questions because it's something I'm focusing a lot on right now. And I would argue I've made a mistake in my past when I first started doing coaching and consulting is I was kind of like, I'll go teach everybody how to sell. I'll go work with every business in every industry. Sales is sales. And even though that is applicable, where I really made a huge turn on my outcome is when I had that very specific, here is where we are best. Here is, and so for me, when I shifted back into automotive and I said, I've got over 15 years of building sales organizations for vendors selling to car dealerships. So I'm confident that there's not many people that can come in and help a vendor generate better revenue on that. Now, can I also go help other sales organizations? 100%, and I still do, but my primary focus target is in the space in which I've niched down. And I made the mistake of not having that niche specialty. And since I've established that niche and that specialization, it's helped me really refine that answer of this is my customer. Here's what I offer in value distinction from my competition. Because when I'm deciding whether I'm going to work with a company, I ask them two questions. I said, tell me your ideal customer profile. And if they don't know the answer of that, I require that to be defined before I'd be willing to work with them. And then number two, I say in 15 words or less, tell me what makes you uniquely different and valuable than anybody else who does what you do in your space in under 15 words. And so I make them say, okay, cool. In 15 words, how can I draw a distinct value prop that is different than anybody else that does what I do? So if I get in a room and four other people who do what I do are pitching against me, what is my distinct difference and value that I offer? And to be honest with you, Michael, most customers I talk to when I ask them these questions, they don't know the answer to these questions because they're not revenue-focused people. They're not focused on how do
Yeah,
I target this to grow revenue. So I ask those
right.
questions to be able to uncover that. So why I'm asking that of you is most people, I think, make the mistake of being so broad because they can serve everybody. And even though you still can serve everybody, having that, this is where we do best. This is where we see the best return.
Yeah, and that's why I'm latching on to athletic departments right now
Love
because
that.
I can talk the talk because I just know so much about college athletics and where it's going, where it's been, how it's constantly evolving, and in terms of the value definition, or it's not down to 15 words. But what I like to say is we're a painkiller because we eliminate immediate and compounding costs and risks fragile, slow to production, enterprise grade pipelines that are actively blocking AI and real time use cases and executive commitments.
So how I would have you the answer you gave is great, but how I would potentially have you rethink of that answer, which is, first off, and maybe you are you the only person who does this?
No.
Okay. So if I asked your competition what makes them unique, if they can answer the question with the same answer, then it's not unique. Now, what you could say that's unique, Michael, is that you have over X amount of years doing this between you and your founding partner. Nobody has more experienced in working specifically with colleges on leveraging their data to get an X amount return on investment around revenue. And those are distinct differentiators.
No, I agree with that. And let me kind of restate that. They could probably say the same thing, right? They could probably say the same thing. The problem I think you run into, and there's multiple dimensions of it. One, they're going to tell you have to re-implement a whole new data platform. Whereas with us, we reuse your existing data infrastructure. That's
great.
One.
That's great.
Okay. Two, when you go to them, you typically have to learn an entirely new technology. With us, you don't have to do that because we use basically a chatbot and SQL, which is the language of databases, which almost even like high school graduates now know, right? It's ubiquitous. It's been around for 50, 60 years now. So that's the other thing. And then there are pieces that they can't replicate, I think. And that goes to the technology level. And then on top of that is just the sheer business knowledge I have about your use case.
There you go.
And my experience.
Yeah. And those are your answers, in my opinion, based off that. The first one you said is, this is how we benefit you. Great. You should be able to answer that too. But here's why we're better than everybody else for you, is the differentiator there. So one is, this is what we do to benefit you. Here's how we're better than everybody else for you. And there is a distinction in that. Number one, you have to sell the need of what you solve. And then second, you have to solve the fact that you are the best answer to then solve that need once they agree that there is a need. And I think that, if you were asking me my advice, which you've not, but if you were asking me, I would say, niche down on the college athletic side. It's something that you're personally interested in, which is great. It's something that you know really well. And the more you do it, the more you can be known as the guy who does this in this space. And, and that's the differentiator. Now, does that mean you can't then do this for any other industry? Sure. But when you're saying, hey, I want to grow my revenue, I want to get more customers, when you have the world to attack, it's far different than the whatever 18, 20,000 colleges that have athletic programs in the country. And that's where you go to your targeted approach.
Yeah. That's my thinking as well. Of course, I would ask your advice. I've been doing this for a long time, but I know I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I just I don't want to just give unsolicited advice when somebody's not asked me, but obviously we're on the conversation. It's something, you and I talked prior to this, and I was like, what interests you? Like, what are you interested in? This is a topic that I have spent a lot of time over the past 3 months that I've really, really studied on, learned on. I've asked tons of people about, which is the value of really niching down and becoming a specialist at something with the ability to use your experience on the perimeter of that process as well. Perfect. So I see you got a Penn State shirt on, just to lighten the mood a little bit. How do you feel about Franklin leaving? Was it the right choice for Penn State at the time? And as a lifelong Virginia Tech fan, I'm excited. Why should I be excited, and why should I not be excited?
Okay. This is a very divisive issue from a Penn State perspective.
I could imagine.
I have personally met Coach Franklin. I think he's a wonderful person. His staff is extremely loyal to them, and they're great.
Yep.
So I am very torn on this. I wish him well. I'm sorry that he had to go, but I understand the reason why the athletic director, Pat Kraft at Penn State, made that decision. Here's the thing that bugs me about it, by the way. Leading up to the last game, or leading up to the Oregon game, by the way, which we lost in overtime on an interception, the entire national news media, sports media, was like, big game James. And they kept on reciting that statistic around how many top 10 wins he had or top 5 wins he had. It's like 1 in 16 or something like that, right? And then the same media, when he gets fired, is flabbergasted. They're like, why did they fire him? Well, you were calling him Big Game James. You know why he got fired. And then he had this massive collapse against UCLA, which is basically a hangover. And he probably lost the locker room after that, which led to the Northwestern game. So I understand the reason why. The reason why we had to part ways. Am I happy about it? No. Am I accepting of it? Yes. As a Virginia Tech fan.
Well, before you move on to that part, but I'll give you my assessment as the outside looking in. My assessment of it is, I think he evolved your program in ways that you guys haven't been relevant for a long time, and he made you nationally relevant every single year. I think that he had taken it to where he could take it, and I was not confident that at Penn State he could consistently win you championships, and that is the standard of Penn State. And I don't think he could.
There's 2 reasons to that. Yeah, there's 2 reasons to that, by the way.
Go for it.
Keep going.
2 reasons? No, what's the 2 reasons?
All right. Well, the first thing, people, I don't think they comprehend the juggernaut that is Ohio State.
Of course.
Okay?
And the reemergence in Michigan.
Yeah, and, well, right now it's
I know. I mean,
very true.
Now it's not great, but, I mean, over the past 5 years, great, for sure.
100%. So that's the one big thing. The second big thing is I think what I've said to people, and I could be wrong, I can completely be wrong. The way I'm reading the situation is he plateaued at Penn State.
I agree.
There's a plateau effect. And I've experienced this professionally and personally. I think we all experience this plateau effect and people they don't recognize it, and they make this mistake, I think. When you hit a plateau, there's a book around this called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. When you hit a plateau, you get there because you develop these skills, right? So you get to this level, and then you're like, oh, I want to go to this next level. And you don't recognize the skills to get you to that level are not the same as the skills that got you to this level. You have to develop new skills and use these skills that you've already developed and build upon them to get to this level. So that's my read on Franklin.
So I get it from that perspective, 100%. Now here's why if I was a Penn State fan, I'd probably still be scratching my head a little bit. What was your next plan? And that's the part where I
don't disagree.
Franklin, because you've already got the next guy lined up that you're convinced can lift the ceiling again, then move that way. If you could bring in an Urban Meyer level guy that you felt was going to take you to that next level that you've not been able to do, but the firing was reactionary to a couple of bad games, and the outcome of that, you guys made some big swings. The BYU guy missed. The Texas A&M guy, early missed. And now I feel like you guys are like on a third or fourth option behind that. And as a Virginia Tech fan, we had that stability of some up years, some down years, but the stability. And then we tried to recreate that so many years, trying to bring the right guy in, including David Pry from Penn State, and it's never been the right guy. And
Brent
that's my
Pry.
concern at
Brent
Penn
Pry.
State.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I call it the Nebraska problem,
For sure.
right? Because you saw it with Nebraska. It was Bo Pelini, probably like a decade ago.
Yeah.
He got them back to 8, 9 wins, 10 wins a season, and they
Yep.
fired him.
Yeah.
Franklin got us basically to 10-win seasons multiple times,
Yeah.
which you're like, how can you fire somebody like that?
Sure.
Because there's no guarantee the next guy is going to do a better job, a good as or better job. And so that, to me, to your point, is you better have a plan. And I think if you're a good AD, if you're a good executive, if you're a good leader, you should be in your head. You always have a backup. Because when I've run
Absolutely.
really large teams, and everyone will say, I train my directs to take my job so I could take a day off. Whether that works out or not is a different story, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I think I saw the same thing. It was reactionary firing, and it looked like he had a list of people.
Sure.
From all the internal rumblings I've heard, is we had a verbal with the BYU guy, and it fell
But
through
yeah,
last
they
minute because of
came in and threw all the money in the
yeah
world at him, and they
yeah.
threw the
I was
religious
gonna say
guilt on him for sure.
it has to be the only football coach hiring in history of collegiate sports where a university had to go up against a religious group to get a
Correct.
coach
You weren't
and
going to win that
lost.
battle when they started throwing the guilt on him in that regards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm interested to see what you think about him for Virginia Tech. Not confident I like the idea of that. I don't know if you saw, but Franklin brought Fry back in to be his D coordinator. And I'm like,
I think
don't
it's weird,
he
but
ever lost the locker room. I just don't think that he was ever able to recruit people because everybody in the state of Virginia, Franklin was taken. And we've now since just raped and pillaged your whole recruiting class over to us. And that's where, like, if the concern is he lost the locker room, I think if there's ever there's maybe 5 head coaches in college that can then refill that locker room quicker than Franklin. And like if all of the star players were leaving in mass exit at the end of the year, then you can make that argument. But he still had a top recruiting class. He still would have been able to bring in people externally. So that's why I'm excited about him, Virginia Tech, because I think he can have us get back that 757 pipeline that we lost to Franklin.
I think he won't be as effective at Virginia Tech as he was at Penn State.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
And it's because he now has to go up against Penn State.
Sure.
Okay. So that's the first thing. I think, but I do think also Virginia Tech will probably win the ACC in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I think that Virginia Tech will likely, in the next 10 years, their ceiling is becoming what Penn State has been. That's their ceiling. And I think that's good enough. Every 5 to 6 years, get in the playoffs, win the ACC half the time, compete with Miami, Clemson, and Florida State to win it, and be on your way. That's good enough for Virginia Tech.
Yeah. Well, and you think about it from this perspective, I think the big game James mantra, or
I never heard that, by the way. As an outsider, I never paid attention to that.
Yeah.
So they're saying he's really good at the big games, or he never wins the big games.
Never wins the big games,
and
I think he's going to.
My perception, but when you call him Big Game James, I was thinking that he steps up, and I would have said my perception is he doesn't win the big game.
No, you're right. He doesn't win the big games. However, I think he's going to turn that around.
Okay.
Because you don't have Ohio State in the ACC.
Sure. Yeah, you don't have.
And if you look at all those losses, it's Ohio State.
Right.
It's like the same thing with I think like LSU and Georgia, it's Bama.
Sure.
So I think because Miami goes like this,
Yep. Of course.
Clemson kind of goes like this,
Yep.
Florida State definitely goes like this.
Yep. For sure.
I think he'll have a propensity to win the big games during the season, which will flip that on its head, and he will like lose that stigma.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. All
Yeah,
right. So enough of sports, because I mean, you and I could probably sit here all day long and talk about sports. I'm a big wrestling fan. I watch Penn State all the time. One last question on sports. In the past 15 years, who's been the best Penn State wrestler at Penn State? All weight classes, who is the best?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm always very partial to Bo Nichols.
I was going to say, I think he's had the highest peak, but I don't think he's had the best, didn't have the best college career.
No, you're right. I don't know. It's a good question.
I would say
I like
I would say Taylor was up there.
Taylor.
And then the guy that was like 3 weight classes lower than Nickel, that I can't remember his name right now, but he was same time as Nickel. He was Noel or something like that.
Yeah, and there's also like the only person in history of wrestling whose name escapes me right now as well, who has won a national championship 5 times.
Yeah. That had to have been in the COVID period when you had that extra year of eligibility.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I can't remember the guy's name. But the guy who I really like watching right now is Mitchell Messenbrick. Brink. I just like watching him, wrestle. I wrestled 165 and 189 in high school.
Okay. That was a range. Would you just have a growth spurt over the summer?
No, I just wrestled up a few weight classes.
Okay.
The coach is like, I wasn't really good, by the way.
Yeah.
I was not good at all.
Yeah, I wrestled in my youth. My dad made me wrestle. My dad was actually a high school state champion and a collegiate wrestler, so he made me wrestle at a young age, and I didn't really call to it as much. Since then, I've grown to become really fond of jiu-jitsu, and I did jiu-jitsu for about 5 years. I'm old now, so I had to stop because my neck started bothering me and all these other things. But I was a huge Bo Nickel fan. I think he's probably the most enjoyable collegiate wrestler that I've seen in a long time, just in regards to his style and his approach. I think it's just very, very unique in that aspect. Okay, so moving on, going into 2026, because when we're recording this, we're about a week out from 2026. It's right before Christmas. If you had to forecast, here's the big thing I want to accomplish in 2026 for your business, what is it?
If there's one thing I'd like to really accomplish in the next year, it's to crack the nut around, I'm going to call it lead generation, but in reality, it's much more personal than that. Meaning, I want to make sure that when I talk to somebody who I want as a customer, I want to make sure that they realize I'm not just selling them, I'm actually trying to provide them help.
Makes sense.
Like, I hate the idea of being, just selling.
Yeah.
Because in truth, in reality, deep down, I do believe I'm helping people in their day-to-day job and businesses.
And to your point, you might hate the idea of feeling like you're selling, but more than you hate that feeling, the customer hates the feeling that they are being sold, right? And so the strategy I've always used for that, Michael, is I break down sales into 4 categories. I think it would benefit from this. Number 1 is appointment setting. So when I'm doing outreach, the number 1 goal is to just sell the appointment. That's it, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you could sell, they might say, well, what do you do? And you might resist the urge to sell the appointment. Then number 2, you get them into a meeting either in person or virtually. And that first 15 to 20 minutes of that meeting is called a sales discovery. You don't sell. You talk less than 30% of the time. The customer talks more than 70% of the time. And you are asking open-ended strategic questions that you are getting the customer to admit what they need help with. And you need them to tell you. You can't implant to them what they need. You need to ask questions for them to realize it on their own and then to verbally say it on their own. And if you do that effectively, then you can only sell based off of, remember when you told me you wanted this. Remember you said you needed this. You said this was an issue. Here's what I would suggest. And now you're doing a more solution-focused consultation to solve their problems, not selling them on what they need to know, but asking them questions so that they come to that conclusion on their own. Those are the first three segments, in my opinion, of sales. And so often people make the mistake of jumping straight to three, which is, let me tell you everything I do. Hopefully it fits what you need, not let me take the time, ask you what you need, make you think outside the box to what you think you need. And then when you've admitted all these things, I just repeat back to you what you've admitted you need.
Yeah, don't you think though, and this is where I think I have a disconnect sometimes. When you're trying to sell the appointment, you're really trying to sell without selling. Meaning you're trying to get the appointment to say, hey, I think I can help you with what I do. How do you overcome, like, how do you sell the appointment?
Well, so it depends. There's a different aspect to where if I'm selling the appointment for me to solve the problem, or somebody else is selling it for somebody else to solve the problem. And there's actually a benefit of using a third-party person to make a phone call for you to speak on your behalf, and then they don't actually know how to solve the problem. They're just working on your behalf to set up in a meeting to meet with our specialist, Michael, who can then solve the problem. So there's a benefit there. Now, what typically happens is when you can solve the problem, you tend to want to solve the problem when you have them. So the way I would do it is, hey, I'm reaching out. I only had a few minutes before my next meeting. I specialize in helping athletic programs like yours leverage their data to get better outcomes. I have a few questions for you, but based off of my research, I believe that I can help you. Do you have time tomorrow around 2:30? I've got a small window of time at 2:30. I'd love to see if I can set up some time and get to know more about maybe where you need help around data. Can you make 2:30 work? Well, what do you guys do? And then that's when you use that first answer you gave me. Here's the problems we solve. Let's set up time tomorrow. Let me see if it even makes sense for us to help you. And then, well, what makes you unique? Second differentiator, the second answer you gave me. But all of those are to acknowledge what the customer says, make a statement, and then sell the meeting, not the solution. Because at the end of the day, we're like, well, how would you help me? To be honest with you, I don't know anything about you. I have no idea what your need is. I know we specialize in helping schools and athletic departments just like yours leverage their data, but I have no clue where your gap is currently. That would be what I would like to find out in our next meeting, and I don't have time to dive into that right now as I've got another meeting to run it.
Got it. Okay.
That would be kind of how I do that. So I want to make sure that even if I've got nothing else to do today, I don't let them know that. And I sell a future conversation because it's important that you reset the stage when they're in a position to receive it. Because what so often when people make cold calls do is they try to sell in a position when somebody's not yet ready to be sold, and they're not in a position, they weren't.
So you're warming up. Yeah, you're warming up.
Warming up, and you're planting the seed for them to think about the idea of when I get on this other call, they might try to sell me.
Got it.
Yep, that would be it. So getting more customers would be a huge opportunity for you in 2026. Now, is there a limit to how many you can work with? Like, one of the things I run into is I only have so much time. And so sometimes I either am selling my time or I'm selling my experience. When I sell my experience, I can help a lot more customers at one time because it's not me selling my time. In most cases, are they buying a platform that is needing to spend your time on, or are they buying a platform where the platform's going to be the time being spent and you can leverage working with dozens of clients at the same time who are using your platform?
Yeah, and that's kind of a difficult question to answer in some respects because it depends, but I could tell you how it depends. Okay? Because the answer quickly is no, there's really no limit to how many people we can work with.
Awesome.
Okay? And that's because in the past, when you would try to implement something like Data Squirrel by yourself without Data Squirrel, it would take months, and I
Okay.
mean months,
Okay.
and multiple people to do.
Yep.
Okay? I mean like a team of 10 to 20. And I can get an entire use case that you're trying to stand up done in 2 days' time at most.
Mm.
Sometimes if I know the use case really well, I can get it done in a day. And I am not that technical anymore.
Okay.
So the ease of use becomes paramount. And then the heavy technical lifting, so to speak, really is just connecting your underlying data infrastructure, which is also could be done with a single file.
Right.
So that's the answer to the question. No, there is no limit. Now, there are instances where I sell, and I call it, I'd say people pay for my decades. I'm charging them by the day, but they're really paying for my decades of experience in this
Of course.
space.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they'll have me come down, and it's not a technical thing. I'm going down to a university in January, end of January. I'm not doing anything technical for them. I am literally kind of talking through where their vision is on where they're going, and how it's the A/B conversation, and it's not see your way out. By the way, it's you're at point A and you want to get to point B. How do
Right.
you get there?
Yeah.
And I help them define point B first. And I say to them, where do you want to be? Don't think about your technical debt. Don't think about your organizational debt. Just say, if I had a magic wand, I could be here tomorrow. And I'll say to them, okay, that's right, that's wrong. Have you considered this? Don't consider that, and so on. So we really define, it's not, I want to be at the top of Mount Everest. It's, want to be at the top of Mount Everest in this amount of time, at this location on Mount Everest, at this elevation on Mount Everest. Very specific. And then I'm like, okay, here's what you have to do to get there. Is that feasible? Do you have the money to get there? Do you have the resources? And so on. So
Makes
that's
sense.
how you connect the two.
Okay.
So that's kind of me selling my time, so to speak.
Yeah,
That's
that
a
makes
little bit
sense.
different than the platform.
I
Yeah.
just didn't know if it was you could take 10 customers on at the same time and it's just about the data download, putting it into the systems doing everything that it needs to do, and then you have some sort of analyst that can then review the information and apply it, or however that might work. So, I mean, all this stuff is over my head significantly in regards to the way my simple mind focuses on everything that you've done decades to do. Michael, I look forward to watching you. Obviously, if there's anything I can help you with going into 2026, don't hesitate to ask. For anybody who wants to have the potential of learning more about you and if you would be a good fit to help them around their data, I'll put all of your information inside of the link to the bio, and they can have a way to get in contact with you. Before we go, any final words for the audience, Michael?
Yeah, it's just have a great new year since it's next week. Enjoy the holidays,
Yeah,
and I hope you have a wonderful 2026.
absolutely.
Keep it
All right,
simple.
man. Well, I appreciate you jumping on. For all of you listening, like, comment, share, subscribe. share this content with as many people as possible. It's really going to help us continue to grow the voice in that and help us get more of what Michael said out to more people. Until then, as Michael said, have a happy new year, and I look forward to talking to you guys in 2026.